Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Before we start, I'm just going to read out the NHP UK knife crime policy. It's time to get tough on knife crime. NHP UK campaigned to introduce a mandatory 12-month prison sentence for under 18s and 24 months for over 18s if they are caught in possession of a bladed instrument. Stop and search would be stepped up across the country, with there being no politically correct witch hunts to impede the police in their duties. This fear will be lifted because of our policy to repeal the Equalities Act. It's no secret that knife crime is at epidemic levels across the UK and has been for some time. Recent statistics released by the ONS show a worrying increase in knife crime, with areas such as London, Bradford, Birmingham, Manchester seeing some of the highest levels since records began back in 2003. 30 years ago, a stabbing in London or in the West Midlands would have been an event that rocked communities, but today it is sadly a daily occurrence that gets passing mention in the newspaper. London alone saw a 36% rise in knife crime under Sadiq Khan's leadership, and the trend has only continued after his re-election. It's only when events like the Southport murders take place that the government and the general public sit up and take notice, reigniting the national debate. But it doesn't have to be this way. NHP UK has been an advocate for toughening the laws surrounding knife crime, with a combined approach focusing on prevention. We don't believe that either the Conservative or Labour governments have taken the issue seriously and have failed in their mission to tackle knife crime in the past 20 years. We are campaigning to introduce a mandatory 12-month sentence for under 18s, enhanced 24-month for over 18s if they're caught in possession. We recognise that sentencing is only a deterrent, and we really need to step up stop and search capabilities nationwide without the fear of politically correct policing impeding the authorities' ability to target individuals and communities associated with knife crime. Areas with high levels of ethnic diversity correlate with higher levels of knife crime, and 2021 Home Office data showed that BAME males aged between 15 and 34 were most likely to be searched, accounting for 32% of all searches. ONS data on knife-enabled crime shows that at the end of 2023, there has been a 7% increase since 2022, with knife robberies alone showing a notable increase of 20%. More recently, for the year ending March 2024, we have seen almost 4,000 hospitalizations for assault with a sharp object, of which more than 1,400 were under 24-year-old. Dr. Ian Overton of Action on Armed Violence has spoken out and condemned the rise in knife violence, stating that it's a symptom of community structures breaking down, poverty, and a wider lack of opportunity for youngsters in particular. He believes that when we tackle these underlying issues with effective measures, that knife crime will surely drop. Whatever the solution is, it's clear, needs to be multifaceted. In 1 decade of all recorded homicides, 38% were due to knife violence. Almost 1 in 10 of all homicides in England and Wales involved those under the age of 15, highlighting that gang violence and the willingness to use such weapons has filtered down to the youngest in our society. The Ben Kinsella Trust has also worked for many years on this issue, aware that our youth are often entangled with gang culture and criminal networks operating in urban areas. We must remember that these are not just figures and statistics, they are real people who have had their lives taken, real families torn apart by the scourge of knife crime in the UK, and real issues that need to be addressed if we are ever going to get a handle on this situation. Although successive governments have pledged to tackle the issue, it's apparent that even after 14 years in power for the Tories and 14 years for the opposition to create effective policies surrounding knife crime, that neither will be able to stem the rise of knife crime as it spreads from our crime-ridden cities to our towns and villages. It will require communities and local councillors working together with government, and NHP UK pledges to make this devastating situation a top priority wherever we are elected. Thank you. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Knife crime again, but I think there's a bit of a... Paul asked me to do this stream, but I think I can really go to say how it's affecting our lives. This was in a primary school. The Southport murders were in a dance school with little kids. This time, the kids have gone into the primary school. Unfortunately, when you look at the videos, every one of them who run in looks like an ethnic minority. I don't see any white invaders. I'm just saying, it's just obviously clear by the CCTV footage. But, you know, I've talked about knife crime a lot. Oldham has been in them statistics. And as it says in our article, Birmingham, Manchester, London, it's now all over the country. And every now and then it'll be some obscure place that pops up at top of the ratings for knife crime, because it's absolutely everywhere now. It did for a while, used to be centred around London, or the media picked on that, but it's gone all over the country. Big John has reported on a lot of these cases. Teenagers, 14-year-olds pulling knives on each other, 15-year-olds being lured out of their houses, then being stabbed to death. All across Greater Manchester, Leeds, and I even travelled to the Royal Courts of Justice in London over a particular case, which was Bradley Gledhill. But, you know, we've got to seriously talk about this, guys. And, you know, one of the things is I've got to put some blame on parenting. That's what I've got to do. I've got to put some blame on parenting. I've said it on many of my other videos. How do we bring kids up that they're doing this sort of stuff? You know what I mean? It's just absolutely ridiculous. But thank you and welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We've got our general hosts are on this week. Good evening, Pat.
Good evening. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Stuart. You're muted, by the way. But we'll go.
Sorry. Oh, my screen went funny and technology. I'm too old for it. Good evening, everybody. How are we?
Good. And finally, Paul. How are you, Paul?
I'm well, John. Now, I raised this issue of Elm Park, the primary school, which is in Essex. You just said in that policy statement there, this knife culture will spread out to the villages. And is there any interference on the stream?
No, seems okay.
Okay, everything's cool. Yeah, we'll spread out to the villages and the suburbs. And this happened in a place called Havering, I think it's called, in Essex, which is near Romford. Now, I lived in the East End of London in the 80s, and we used to go out there for a pint. You know, it was a lovely sort of Essex village, and it's where you went to get away from the urban sprawl and to relax a bit. Now, as you said, this was a black gang, effectively, wasn't it? It turned up. 60 of them. They were tooled up. They were carrying big knives. I mean, some of the video footage, these are 12-inch knives, 12-inch blades they were carrying. And the two lads that were stabbed, both stabbed in the leg, fortunately, were white lads. So there was like a racial element to this, an ethnic element to it. So they invaded this disco and basically run riot. they'd taken drugs outside before they stormed the disco. They were smoking, they call it balloons, this nitric oxide, this laughing gas, to get high on that. They were smoking marijuana. This seemed to be the favourite drugs, probably snorting some cocaine. Storming the school and attacked the disco and caused chaos, you know. Now, the police arrived. 2 police cars arrived. The police got out, and you think, oh, well, that's the end of the incident. They'll disperse it. The police were attacked. 2 of the police officers were injured. And these were only 16 and 17-year-old kids. Now, it's said that some of the girls who were with this gang were spitting in the police officer's face. They were very aggressive to the police. And the police had to ring for backup. They had to bring dogs. They had to bring the full weight of the police force to bear. And this gang was running riot in Havering. And eventually, a certain number were arrested and they were dispersed. But I thought to myself, this is the start of the summer of our discontent. Because we've got a long summer ahead this year, and we're in a very sticky wicket. We're on a very sticky wicket in England. The economy is flat. The cost of living crisis is hitting people hard. There's going to be a rise in unemployment. Money is going to be tight. When money's tight, society gets more tense. And we're going to see a lot of these youngsters on the streets, especially in London over the summer. And I thought this could be the first spark of what could be a summer of mayhem. Because, make no mistake about it, these gangs are running riot in our cities. And there doesn't seem to be any control. Don't seem to be forget the parents. They've got no fear of the police. The schools now don't impose much discipline. The school teachers can't touch the kids, never mind cane them. I mean, I went to a comprehensive school in Liverpool, a very rough school, but it was strictly disciplined by the teachers. You stepped out of line, you got whacked. And I think we have to return to the biblical principle. A good beating chastens the soul. Spare the rod and spoil the child. And this is what's happened in our society. These people are coming in from different cultures, rough and ready cultures. Now, a lot of the African kids, especially in Liverpool, they're very studious kids. They come here to seize educational opportunities, not to cause chaos. But it seems after a while, once they get used to British culture, how slack it is, they go on the offensive. And we're seeing this in London. And, Pat lives in London. He knows the extent of this night crime. But what struck me was this was an horrendous event, a shocking event, and yet it got minimal media coverage. They want to brush it under the carpet yet again. And you can't do that because we're sitting on a volcano and we don't know what the future will bring. Pat, what's your feeling on this?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Elm Park is in the area of Havering. It is actually in the London area. It's not actually Essex, but it might have used to be Essex. I've done quite a lot of campaigning around that area, and it was generally a white area. So, obviously things are changing around there. I did see this on the internet, but like you say, Paul, it seems to be pushed under the carpet. And I think the reason it's been pushed under the carpet is because of the ethnicity of these gangs. And if it was white gangs, it would be front page. Like, look at these disgusting kids. This is out of control. The violence is off the scale. But it's so deep now. And you mentioned that, there could be riots this summer. And the interesting thing about London is when Mark Duggan was shot dead, I think in 2011, that those riots were so out of control, which spread all across the country, that it literally terrorized the government. And the reason that happened was because of stop and search. The reason those riots happened because, Mark Duggan had a gun on him, and, he was stopped by armed police. Whatever happened, they shot him dead. And the police had stepped up, stop and search to put down the knife crime epidemic, what had just risen. And they did bring it down. But then that happened, the riots, the worst riots we've seen in this country, and then the police have retreated again. They've retreated again, and I've noticed it the last 14 years now. Whenever there's a major incident, the police back off. There was a major incident right outside my house in Holborn, and there was this barbecue. It was during lockdown, and there was a barbecue of this group of people, and it turned into a riot, a full-scale riot. Riot police turned up. They were throwing bricks and bottles at the police. And you know, and I thought, oh, the riot police are here now. They're going to squash it and deal with it. Do you know what the police done? They backed off and let it. So their attitude now is to let it fizzle out rather than confront it. And as we go on longer and longer, you know, they're sensing this now. Like the things what you described in that incident at the school, they're spitting at the police. They've injured the police. They've lost control, and they're just terrified another full-scale riot's going to happen like in 2011. And you know, we're on a big crossroads now. What is going to happen? You know, is the violence going to get worse in London? It's really bad. There's nearly a rape nearly every hour in London. You know, the kids are not safe going to school. You know, they've got these gangs of kids going around with machetes. When I was at school, I'm from inner London, and you know, you didn't really have people carrying knives much in the secondary school. Once you left school, 15, 16, that's when you started seeing things like that. But in the secondary school, generally, there wasn't a knife culture. This was primary school, apparently. Is that correct? It's primary school. Yeah. So things, and another interesting thing about this whole thing is, I don't know if people remember, but gun crime got really bad in London around that time, 2011. And they, you know, everyone says, oh, with a knife, this is why our policy is only 24 months for possession of a knife. Because if you make it higher, like say 5 years for carrying a knife, the minimum sentence you get for carrying a gun is 5 years. So if you put so what they did is, you know, they put this sentence in when the gun crime was through the roof. They said, right, anyone caught with a gun's 5 years minimum, and everyone started carrying knives, and now it's all knives. So if they say, oh, we're going to put a 5 year minimum for carrying a knife, everyone's going to start carrying guns again. So we're in a very dodgy territory. It's escalating, and you know, they can't control it. It's getting worse and worse. But there's so many other factors to it. Breakdown of Christianity, no family background, no father figures and things like that. You've got the illegal drug trade, which is driving the knife crime and the violence. You know, there's a massive divide with the police and certain communities, because one community is a different ethnicity. Most of the police are recruited from all around the country to come to the Met, so they're mostly white. You know, and all the lefties say, yeah, but it doesn't matter what kind of people are. Well, why do they want black coppers now then? Why are they saying all the police need to be black now then? So, yeah, it's just so many things to it. Yeah, and it's getting worse. I mean, that incident there sounded horrific. I mean, imagine if your kid was at that school. So, yeah, it's not looking good. And I think we're moving toward, like Paul mentioned, strict discipline at school, and we're heading towards a very strict government getting in power at some stage, possibly a dictatorship. Who knows? Because how else can you sort this out? It's, you know, and another thing is, when I was young, it was at the times where you know, I used to say to mum, I admit it, I used to say to my mum and dad, oh, I'll get you arrested if you hit me and all that. And that's the attitude now. Like, young people, like, no one can touch them. Police can't touch them. School teachers can't touch them. Their parents can't touch them. And this is all from this liberalisation and feminism, all from the Frankfurt School, in my opinion. You know, that's the origins of it all. Break down society, crash it down so they can take over with communism. So yeah, that's my take on the situation at the moment.
Stuart.
Well, there's several things running through my head at the moment. The lowering of the standards for police, DEI, all of that. We shouldn't be recruiting on, we've got to have so many of this sex, so many now, we've got to have trans. So, no, it's the best person for the job, and they should be trained properly on how to treat people, how to de-escalate a situation. Now, a lot of them don't know how to do that, and they wind the situation up for a start. That happens out so much of the time. Over the years, the standards have been lowered, along with the relationship with the public. You know, whenever you hear now of an incident, most of the time there's no longer a description. They've taken Crime Watch used to have that on all the time, and you used to have face effects and everything. They can't do that when they're going to be showing 80-90% of people that are non-white, because most of those crimes are demographically being done by those. I'm not saying that there's not white children in there, in the gangs, teenagers and younger these days, they recruit them younger. We need to get back to a good, solid, Christian-based education. With that education should be regular education on knife crime and what it does, not just to the victim, but also the perpetrator, especially at a young age. Because if you're 15, 16, you know, they used to call it Borstal, now it's like young offenders or whatever. You're just going to be hardened up in there. You're going to be even more marginalised because of the people you're mixing with that are probably harder than you, probably teaching you a few tricks of the trade for when you get out. And it starts you on a dark path. Without education, family foundation, getting confidence in the police that they are trained to do their job properly, and also that the directions and that they get from up above. You know, at the moment in Southern Ireland, you're seeing a load of trouble, and it's being quashed. What they're not showing is how different their police are. Their police are pepper spraying peaceful crowds, forcing them back. I'm not saying that it's not two-way in some instances, but most people I see in those crowds are just disgruntled people that are protesting. So in this country, you've got weak police that shy away from sorting a situation out because they're not trained properly, because they're not backed up properly, and because it's not even. If it was even and they treated everybody the same, regardless of age or skin colour, or age comes into a bit, I must admit, but it comes from a solid foundation of training, and it's not good. Just as our education system should be training people how to be productive in life, not how to, they've got to constantly protect themselves because they're scared.
Yeah,
it does happen a lot. So many kids get drawn in because they've got to protect themselves, and then they get threatened by somebody who waves a knife at them. They know that next time, whoa, I might have to have one, back myself up, and it's a slippery slope. We need to get back so that we've got confidence in the police, and that won't come until we've got confidence in government, in my honest opinion. I'll let somebody else go now. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Couple of things. London is majority BAME city, and if you look at statistics, it is the kind of crimes that we're talking about, the knife crime, the scooter crime, it's all done mainly by one ethnicity. But it's not saying that it isn't like that. The Reece Tansey case in Bolton was 3 white lads, and then they lured him out of his house and stabbed him to death. But where did they learn that kind of thing? Like Pat said, when I were at school, nobody had a knife. Nobody had a knife at school. We didn't have to have security guards. We never had metal detectors. None of that was in our schools. And people, if they had an issue with each other, would go behind the sports hall and just have a fist fight. You know what I mean? With a few people. That were it. But then it's just expanded. And the general thing is, and you'll get this off a lot of people, is that knife crime has been imported, unfortunately, along with a lot of other crime. And right now, minority men make up the biggest sexual offenders in the UK at the moment for the representation they have. Even though there's a lot of white men doing it, unfortunately, they're overrepresented the minority community. But kids, if my dad would have seen me doing something like that when I was younger, I would have had to go home fearing that I would get the beating of my life off my dad, Pat, Paul. I would not, I just wouldn't have got involved in that because that would have been the consequences when I get home. But there's no consequences now because parents can't touch the kids, or we have bad parents. And I'm going to point to it again. Bad parenting, single mothers, poverty families and stuff like that all adds to it. But bad parenting, what are the parents like? You know what I mean?
But the truth is, John, it starts in the state, all this rot. I mean, the attack on the family started during the Harold Wilson government in 1967, when they made divorce easy, when they legalized homosexuality, when they legalized abortion, when they ended capital punishment. That was a turning point in this country. Now, the question is, where are we heading and how quickly are we going to get there? Because I feel like Britain is on the verge of becoming a dystopia. It's on the verge of becoming a nightmare society. Multiculturalism will never work. You see, when we had these issues in the past, maybe with troublesome youth or whatever, the whole of society would come together and resolve these issues, and the leaders would take responsibility for that. Now, like, for example, the Muslim communities are not interested in black gang culture if it doesn't touch them. They're interested in their own community. The Hindus are the same. And the whites, we're the sort of forgotten people now in this society. We live in a two-tier society. They talk about two-tier care as far as the justice system goes. We know that, you see, this is the problem with black gang culture. They're treated with kid gloves by the justice system, and they're basically given control of the prisons. They're given a slap on the wrist for horrendous crimes. Now, it's not only the two-tier justice system, there's also two-tier policing. The police are not vigorous enough, as Pat has already said. They let it fizzle out. But I've seen policemen running from black gangs in London, and they wouldn't do that with white gangs. They wouldn't do that with British lads. They stand their ground and they pound the British lads. If these had been British lads, as Pat said earlier, this sort of, there's a double-edged justice system now. If these had been British lads attacking an African disco, the police would have stormed in. The media would have been outraged. The politicians. I mean, look at Steve Lawrence. How long ago was that? Over 35 years ago? He's still mentioned now. He's still held up as a martyr. And he's still, they're still looking into that case. Since he was murdered, there's been over 2,000 white people killed by ethnic minorities in this country. 2,000. And no one's really bothered. No one's really focusing on it. Their deaths don't really count. And this is really bizarre because we flipped the nature of any society. If a society doesn't look after its indigenous people, it hasn't got much of a future. So we're importing more people now. Immigration's going to go up 20% this year under this Labour government. It was already at record high levels. It's going to go up to 1.2 million this year in one single year. Labour are promising to build a whole swathe of new houses. Who's going to get those houses? Most of the indigenous population are excluded from the waiting list now. It's absolutely obscene. And this is going to present society with a growing resentment of the indigenous people. And we need an outlet for that, because this is the dystopia that's ahead of us. You have a utopia where everything moves towards perfection and betterment. You have a dystopia where everything just gets worse and worse. And this is how everyone feels under a Labour government. It's like a slippery slope. We know these issues won't be resolved. We know the criminals will find the authorities a soft touch. We know the economy is in meltdown. It's not going to improve. There's no growth in the economy. There's ongoing inflation. There's high interest rates. People are feeling the pressure. And that's going to really start to hurt people soon. And that's when you see friction in society. That's when you see anger arise. So, as I say, it's a summer of discontent ahead. And, how can we resolve that? Someone's already asked it on the stream, a question to Pat. How can we resolve these issues? How can we turn it all round? Pat?
Well, we're all doing something about this. Everybody in this party is doing something, and we should all be proud of ourselves for trying to at least do something. It's incredibly hard what we're doing, because there is a hell of a lot of other small parties, but we're coming to a crossroads now. I believe there are certain parties are getting quite stronger and bigger, and but yeah, we should all be proud of ourselves. We're trying to do the best we can. We're pushing Christianity. That's one of the main things why this problem has arisen, in my opinion. And also the illegal drug trade is such a big problem. I mean, I've been out leafleting in Covent Garden the last few days, and there's people just selling drugs openly in the street, and it's like the worst drugs you can imagine as well. Our policy is to completely decriminalise it, take it out of the hands of the drug dealers, put it into government doctors for prescription only. We either do that or we execute the dealers. It's one or the other to solve it. And I don't think we're going to be getting the execution. I don't think that would be the best way, but some people do say that is the way to go. But it's one of those two options to solve it. And the whole country is taking drugs. I think people are rather taking drugs now than that years ago. It'd be going down the pub. And, in London, there's probably about, 70% of the pubs have gone in London. Which is a real old English tradition. I don't know what it's like around the rest of the country, but I've heard the pubs are going everywhere. So yeah, we can be proud of ourselves. We're standing in local elections. I'm standing in elections. John's standing in elections. Stuart's going to stand as a paper candidate. The very least he can do, and that's all we can do. There's not another party for me out there that I would want to join at the moment, because there's really important things to me. We want to promote Christianity. I'm a unionist. I'm a nationalist, Christian nationalist. And don't want to be part of NATO. All these little things matter, and so we're doing well. We're still going. I've got my election next year. I put in the chat the donate link. If anyone could kindly donate to leaflets for us, because leaflets do cost money. And my leaflet I've just done has been an incredible leaflet. I was out on the street today, and I approached some people on a stall at Holborn Tube Station, and I said to them, "Oh, do you live around here?" And they said yes. And I said, "Oh, I'm standing in local elections." And I showed them the leaflet. Oh, we got one of those the other day. Yeah, we're going to vote for you. I was like, oh, brilliant. And, you know, it's really encouraging, man. Like, you know, so I'm not canvassing at the moment. I'm just leafleting, but I'm canvassing at the same time. So sometimes I can't get in the block. I've got a buzz on the door so I can get into the door. Because if I put 6 leaflets through a letterbox with 6 flats in it, a lefty might see those leaflets and just chuck them all in the bin. And none of those 6 flats are going to see my leaflets. I've got to get in every single door to make sure my leaflets get to every voter. And but this leafleting session has really taken it out of me, because this particular leaflet is 3 times the size, 3 times the weight of the normal 5,000 what I do. This is the 4th time I've leafleted my ward. And I've only got about 2 days left. And one of our activists is going to be coming up from the West Country to help me on the 2nd of April, which is very kind of him. And it's very nice that people do come out and help us, leaflet and stuff. So, yeah, if you can donate, you know, 20 quid, 30 quid, a fiver, anything, you know, it all helps. And we're Christians, we're nationalists, we love this country. We've got sensible policies. Check our policies out on the website, nationalhousingparty.uk. You know, we've got a Bible study going. Paul Rimmer, the leader of the Bible study. Excellent Bible study. You know, it's been going for well over 2 years now. And we had to start up the Bible study because all the churches are woke. You know, they're practicing. Like in London, the bloody churches have got bloody rainbow flags on them. For God's sake. You know, there's one in Stoke Newington. I just can't believe it. And so, yeah, you know, we've got a Bible study. Come to the Bible study. If you're a Christian, you're watching, you know, even if you're not a part of our party, you can still come to the Bible study. You know, we're a Christian nationalist Bible study. We don't, you know, we're not scared to talk about immigration. We're not scared to talk about, you know, refugees and all this sort of stuff. So please come along, or please come and join the party. £22 a year. If you're working, it's £11 a year if you're not working. And, you know, we can only do what we're doing. And we should all be proud of ourselves. And Jesus Christ is King. And we cannot fail with Jesus. And that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Pat. Thank you. And again, guys, we want leaflets, and we've had tens of thousands of leaflets. We don't spend money on anything else. We do have the odd banner, but we still spend our own money. So any donation money you're going to give is going to go to leaflets. It's not going to go to anyone's train fare. It's not going to go to any hotel bill or anything like that. Just going to go on leaflets, and that's how we want to keep it. And we're not going to suspend you or cancel you if you've been on a Tommy Robinson march. We're just not going to do it. We're not going to suspend you if you speak out of term to do with like laws done with him Farage. And we're more direct. We know what we want. There's no sniding us behind us. We're not going to take donations from Israel. We're not going to take no donations from Saudi. And we're certainly not going to take donations from Elon Musk. We'll do it all ourselves. But please help support us. We've got nearly 600 people on, and a load of them are viewing off X platform. So please, guys, give us a few quid to get us some leaflets. We've done 2 years of these streams, 2 years of Bible class. We're committed to running in local elections. Mine's next year. We've got elections for next 2-3 years. So please support us or donate to us if you want to join the party. There is an email going along the bottom there. And if you've got any questions as well for the party, there's our admin at nationalhousingparty.uk, or you can email me or Pat. But please support us, join our party, follow all our social media links, like, share and subscribe, and catch up with us every week, every Tuesday, 8 p.m. There's hardly any time we miss. And then I do another show, 9 p.m. on Friday, which is a late night veteran show. But please support us, guys. Please support us.
My worry about this whole issue is that criminality is becoming endemic in British society. I mean, if you have a society that allows people in, illegal aliens, to come amongst you and then to plug in to your welfare state, to take your social housing, to milk your education system and your health service. This is encouraging criminality. These people have come in illegally. I mean, some of them are claiming are bogus asylum seekers. Others are just outstaying their visas. Others are coming in legally, you know, through intermarriage. The government is encouraging them. We have a criminal government in this country. The Labour government is allowing criminal activities to bloom in this country. And it's the number of law-abiding, decent, hard-working people, which were the core of this society for centuries, is being reduced by the day. And a lot of young people now are saying this: what's the point of working hard, studying hard, acquiring skills, if all that's going to happen is you get a dead-end job, or you get a job which pays insufficiently, you can't afford housing, and then the government is going to tax you to death to finance the ethnic replacement of the British people. And this is causing a disillusionment right across society. And this eventually is going to create fractures, deep, deep fractures in the society. Because we cannot rely on the police service or the courts or the wider state, even the military now, to defend us. They're not up, as Stuart said earlier, they're just not up to the job anymore. The DEI has totally hollowed them out, and they're basically held on a very tight leash by the politically correct establishment. Everyone thinks we can just go on like this ad nauseum, and it will carry on just as it always has done. But I tell you, we're heading for a crisis, and it's going to come under this Labour government. And it could come a lot quicker than people expect. And this is the dystopia that we're in. And we can only get out of this through a political vision, a different political division. Someone said earlier we might require a dictatorship to overcome this, because we cannot allow the courts, the civil service, and all these sort of unions to obstruct putting this society back to what it should be. We cannot allow them to be a barrier to reimposing order and decency in this society. So there's big issues ahead. Stuart, how do you see it going?
What worries me, everybody, is that the people that integrated legally and that follow all DEI are now within the system. So, for instance, I saw on X the other day some ridiculous number of mixed race, I don't know other way to say it, non-whites. There's a huge amount of non-whites, and some of them are actually asylum seekers, or they've gained asylum. So some of them, I believe, have come here with an agenda. And they always highlight how we take in nurses, for example. We take in cheap labour for our security services. But they're not telling you the amount of academics that they're bringing in that I can only put as one word: infiltrating our systems. And that has perpetrated throughout the whole of the judicial system. You've got not only the police, got social workers, they've all got it, all the judges, all the lawyers. I was on an X Spaces the other night, and somebody mentioned that they had dealings with Priti Patel. And Priti Patel would say she would clear one case off of her desk and then another 40 would appear, because the left are very, very organised and well financed, and they've done it throughout the system. So even the banks, banks need loans to be able to trade. And to be able to trade, you had to sign up to the ESG, the DEI, everything. Wave the rainbow with the triangle, perverted flag, everything. Otherwise, you don't get the finance you need. And all of that finance, or a lot of it, was coming through George Soros and other sources, other NGOs, some financed by USAID, but a lot of it we finance ourselves. This country pays out billions that we don't really track to charities that work against us, Christian charities, Jewish charities, Islamic charities. Every charity you can think of operates abroad through various countries, filtering people through here. Without borders, there can be no nation. And without nation, there can be no peoples, because it will break down. Absolutely, it will break down. And as a country, we're not going to have a future unless we have strong leadership. I know that obviously reform's having a lot of ructions at the moment, and it's splitting up, and Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe may get together. Again, I was on another X-Spaces chat, and there was well, she's still conservative, but she's having dealings with these other guys, and they're setting up can't remember the name of it, but it's like a pack. So in America, a lot of the Trump campaign got a lot of votes from young people, because they had campaigns going through schools and colleges, educating people that were of the age to vote or coming up to vote, so that they had an idea of who to vote for. Also, they put pressure on the parties. Now, this lady, I wish I could remember her name, but I believe there's going to be a website set up, and they're inviting to come in to anybody to come up with ideas, put forward ideas. Maybe a conglomerate of populist parties could put forward their ideas. Now, they say that there's going to be like, so they get everybody's ideas, and then they lobby government to do what the people want. At the moment, they're not talking about forming a party, but the idea sounds brilliant, that we can get real people on the ground, local ideas coming through, national ideas coming through, and we, as a party, are one of the very few that work off of basic Christian morals as a party. We need help. We need ideas. So everything's going across the bottom of the screen. I can't read it. It's a bit too small for my eyes. If you guys can read it, any help you can give would be appreciated. Anytime you want to have an idea, you think you can expand one of our policies, improve one of our policies, come along. Give us an idea. Join us. Even if it's just for a chat with your ideas, we're always open. And I'll leave the rest to the leader of the party, John.
Yeah, let me say after you, John. After you, John.
Right, thank you. I mean, this is how bad politics is. I don't need people keeping up, but the Reform candidate for Runcorn is called Sarah Puchin, who wanted to stay in the EU. As a Conservative, she's already been there outside the hotels with banners saying, "Oh, come and meet the Afghans and the Syrians," and all this. And obviously, Tories are broken. She's in Reform. She's running as Reform in Runcorn. These people do not have your interest at heart. Otherwise, she'd stick to her morals. That's not someone I'm going to vote for. If she's such a two-faced person that she's gone from pro-refugee to joining Reform, she's only in it to get her MP status and to get a rich bank. Honestly, you just couldn't make it up, guys. But this is a National Housing Party. My name's John Lawrence, the leader. Watch all our social media. Please go and examine our links and sign up to our platforms. We're across various platforms, Facebook to Rumble, Dlive, VK, and you'll see a lot on our socials. And we're big on X. We're big on X as a group. So please, and you know, guys, I did a video the other week and I put it on TikTok, and I've been contacted off somebody. I'm very interested in running, but I'm not going to vote for reform. That's what he said. But he is helping a reform candidate in his area because there is no other candidates at the moment. But so, you know, it's interesting. And when people see that we're just normal people, we're not far anything. We don't lean to this side. We don't lean to that side. We're just normal UK people. We want a life for our country. We want to bring it back from the edge of the abyss that it's standing on now. You've heard us talking about knife crime. We've done it a few times, but again, I just want to reiterate, people, it's a pretty big thing with me, considering I was involved in a case where my mate nearly died and we're on 12 hours critical to intensive care. So, you know, I've got issues with knife crime myself. And on the night that two 15-year-olds and a 16-year-old got arrested, and I estimated that they were aging between 14 and 19, these lads, and I were exactly right. That's how old they were. And, you know, it's really bad. And this is a town centre, like, youth gang. And that's what it come down to. You know, it was a year before we got any justice, but one of the lads had been caught with a knife while he was on bail for having a knife. And unfortunately, this guy, I've got his name, he's going to end up murdering someone. That's what he's going to end up. That's his next step in his evolution. And we looked at this on his record. So, yeah, I want to talk about it. Yeah, I think I've got issues. And, yes, I want to get my opinion out. And, yes, I'm going to talk about the bloodbath on our streets all day long. I just want people to know. So, any last words, guys?
So just want to recap on something we said earlier. So, you know, we've all acknowledged that, you know, this knife crime epidemic is linked to the breakdown of Christianity in our country. So, just this week, a school announced that they're going to cancel their Easter celebrations in the school, and they're going to replace it with a refugee welcome event. And this is what they're doing. They're basically taking Christianity away, which is making our country more unstable. And then they're brainwashing the kids into, like, making them think that the whole of Africa and Asia has the right to come here. This is what they're doing. And, you know, I'm going to be on a live stream tomorrow. They're a Scottish organisation called A Force for Good. I'll be on there tomorrow at 7:30 talking about the United Nations Refugee Convention, because they did a tweet. Because I did a video about Nigel Farage and how he's made a big mistake by calling these people coming across the channel illegal immigrants, because he's too scared to say, well, actually, the problem is we accept refugees and they're using that option to get into our country, and it needs to be taken off the table and completely stopped. And so I made this video, and quite a lot of people retweeted that video. The founder of the Brexit Party, I can't remember her name. What's his name? Godfrey Bloom. He retweeted it as well. And so this refugee convention is, you know, a big thing. And these people flooding across, our whole society has been built around this notion because of, you know, just after 1945, it was created. And it's basically like a communist convention. It basically made the world to have no borders. So anyone can turn up at any country in the world with no documents and claim asylum, and they can't be treated as criminals. Anyway, this organisation, A Force for Good, they've invited me on to talk about it because they put out a few tweets backing up what this party's been saying all along. You know, the reality is they're not breaking any laws, these people, and that's why they're flooding across. That's why there's a stampede going on, because they know they're not going to be criminally charged. You know, a lot of them might be fraudsters, but there's a hell of a lot of them who are from countries where you easily get asylum. And, you know, we need to leave this convention. We need to highlight it. More and more people know about it now, and that's really good. And that's the only way we're going to secure our countries, by leaving all refugee conventions and stop giving out UK passports to foreigners, period. A marriage is a different thing. The person marrying the UK citizen doesn't need to be given a UK passport. Obviously, the children will be given that, but you don't need to give out UK passports to foreigners. It just doesn't have to, you know, it's got to be brought to an end to secure the country, to save the country. And that's our policy. There's a lot of other parties out there who keep saying that they've got strong policies, but I think we're the only one who actually say no more giving out passports to foreigners. You know, all the others say, oh, reduce immigration, oh, they got to integrate. And we've done enough of that over the years. Our country's been destroyed. So anyway, just wanted to highlight that fact with that school removed the Easter celebrations, and we were talking about it with the knife crime incident in that primary school in Elm Park in East London.
The thing is with Christianity is it clearly delineates right from wrong. We're not talking now about the sort of wet Christianity we're seeing in these woke churches, which is the distortion of the message. We have to reimpose this moral strength on society. This is why we're getting close to a dystopia. We've lost the sense of right and wrong. And the people in power, the Lib Lab can't. We know that impose this sense of righteousness back into our society. They are completely useless and completely sold out. They are all cultural Marxists in the Tory party, in the Labour Party, and in the Lib Dems. They have no solutions to this country. Now, the way they've survived so far is they've inherited a prosperous economy, but that's come to an end. They bought peace in this society. They bought their power, but the money's run out now. This country is coming close to bankruptcy, and some harsh decisions are going to have to be made. They can't keep putting up taxes because it's killing the growth in our society. They're going to have to start cutting public spending hard. That's hitting, as we've already seen, the disabled, the pensioners, the farmers, the hardworking people in the society being taxed to death. And there's a great sense of resentment out there. And we need a political vehicle that truly expresses this. And this is why this party exists. Because it's we the people now who are the media and who are the future of this country. We cannot rely on the established parties. We've got to organise ourselves. We've got to motivate and educate ourselves. The easy option drying up very, very quickly. And therefore, there's tough decisions ahead. And we're going to have to toughen up, guys. We're going to have to man up, as they say, because there's big issues unfolding. And we've seen with this incident in London, there is a lot of criminality in this society. There's a lot of abuse of the indigenous population. When everything breaks down, we're going to have to form our own brigades to defend ourselves. We're going to have to be ready to step up to the plate. And that's why we've got to wake up now. We've got to say, what are the issues we're facing in the future? Everyone's gone soft. Everyone's just gone along with this decline in society, this slippery slope to hell. But now is the time to take a quick about turn. And we're seeing this in America now. Donald Trump has shown an example of standing up to this whole left-wing agenda. It's going to happen in Europe. We can't take it anymore. And that's why I think these incidents, like we saw in Essex, these incidents are waking the British people up to realise that nothing is safe anymore. Nothing is sacred anymore. This was in a primary school. This was in a nice village in East London, a lovely village. If it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. And we're just anticipating what's going to go this summer ahead now. A lot of people are apprehensive. We can't put faith in the police anymore. I just hope that before there's a breakdown of this society, we're ready and organised to meet the challenge. Stuart?
Just very quickly, I'd like to say that I saw, well, wouldn't like to say, I saw a little montage of videos put together yesterday of you were showing a Muslim preacher on the street singing a call to prayer. Then you were shown a young man in Brighton who's in his mid-20s, born-again Christian, ex-drug user. He's out educating people on the street, gets attacked by lefties, gets moved on by the police. Then it goes to, I think it's central London through Ramadan, when they had one of the big squares full of Muslims, all the police around keeping everybody away. Thank you very much. Back to this young man who's trying to educate people about Jesus and about the fact, the falls that he made. And every time he's moved on, this young man is an inspiration. I'm afraid I don't know who he is, but I'd love to get him on here.
Yeah, I know who he is.
So, well, might be worth seeing him, getting him a chat on.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Good idea.
Young Christian, mid-20s, I think he was. He looked something like that. An absolute inspiration. But what was disgusting was the way the public treated him and the way the police treated him.
Yeah.
Admittedly, he did have a couple of other people come along and defend him, but the police were absolutely outrageous when they should be supporting. You've had them out kneeling to BLM. Yeah, you've had them waving the rainbow flags.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I forgot to say was, so what they've more or less done, they've replaced this kind of emotional refugee kind of concept, replaced that with like of Christianity. Like in the primary school, they removed Easter and they want to replace it with a refugee event week or whatever it is. And this all comes from like 1948. And our whole society is based on this notion that, we must open our everything for these people from Africa and Asia. Otherwise, you're evil. If you don't go along with it, you're evil. And it's a religion now. And they've replaced Christianity with it. This woke
people should have a look at the origins of kindergarten. That's all part of that education system that you're talking about. So it takes children right from kindergarten age and starts the programming.
Yeah.
And it runs through, all the way through.
Right, we're past our hour. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Don't forget, live every Tuesday, 8 p.m. for goddamn more than 2 years. And on a Friday as well. So please subscribe to the channel. We've got short of 800 people on, a lot of them on Twitter. Please support us. Please subscribe to the channel, follow our links, visit our website. If you want to ask us questions, there's an admin email there. And there's our normal emails. So get in contact with us. Thank you to guests tonight. Bit of a difficult subject always, knife crime. We have covered it a couple of times, but as Paul said, I think it's going to be the hot summer of blood this year. I really do. And it won't be just with knife crime. There's going to be terror attacks, unfortunately. But, they know this, but they're not doing anything to protect us. God bless you all.
Paul, stay on the stream because we've got to have a chat.